I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.
Now, speaking of this whole situation with the parks, there's a certain lawsuit going on. I don't think it's fully class action yet. I believe it's potentially a class action.
Correct.
For the Magic Key, the blockout dates. And for those of you not aware at home, basically a Magic Key holder is suing Disney, right? Because when they bought their Magic Key, they bought it with the idea, with the mindset that they didn't have any blockout dates. But with the reservation system, it creates kind of a pseudo blockout calendar, because if you try to reserve a day that's not available, that's a blockout date.
Right.
So, Dre, if you can kind of set the table in regards to the newest developments, we'll kind of break this down, talk about it.
This is interesting. So, I was trying to keep an eye on this, and apparently I didn't do my due diligence, because Dusty Sage from Mice Chat actually had a write up about some of the updates surrounding this lawsuit. So I'll go ahead and read what they put out. They said the case continues to make its way through California and federal court systems. In the U.S. District Court, Central District of California, a judge recently responded to Disney's motion to dismiss the case. The judge did approve dismissing parts of the case, but not others. That means that the case will continue, at least on some of the claims. The portions of the original complaint that will continue are the allegations of breach of contract and demands for legal remedies pursuant to the California Consumer Legal Remedies Act, which provides consumers with protection against false advertising, fraud, and other unfair business practices. We found it very interesting that the judge said that the following in regards to the breach of contract claim. And the judge says this: the court finds that plaintiff has adequately pled facts supporting how a reasonable consumer may be deceived by the advertisement, which states, quote, no blockout dates. They say here, unless this case is settled or resolved soon, that could result in Disney rethinking the entire Magic Key program, which, from what I understand, they are already rethinking the program internally, but that's another story, and likely changing the rules, language, and other benefits of any passport-style system going forward. So it is a kind of a very interesting developing situation. We're still going to have to see what arises out of this, but we're already seeing fundamental changes. It was not by accident that around the time that this case was actually filed, we started seeing changes to the buckets as they were distributed. Not much in Walt Disney World, but in Disneyland especially. As you'll remember, the latter half of 2021, people were complaining about not being able to get regular access to the parks, specifically in the months of October, November, and December, where it was just blocked out for months at a time and nobody could actually get access. And now we're seeing that kind of change, and the prioritization put on annual pass holders or Magic Key holders as opposed to ticket holders, which is unfortunate for ticket holders, myself included, because it's kind of hard to get dates. But the reality is, I think they want to put themselves in the best standing while this lawsuit is actually taking place.
Well, and the issue too, and like I'm a local, and I'm constantly arguing for the ticket holders, because here's the thing: if Disney would allow the Magic Key holders to kind of run roughshod, not have a reservation system, and just go whenever they want, like they want,
yeah.
It hinders the experience for people that are going for that once in a lifetime visit or that once in every decade visit. And as a Disney fan, look, as a local, I don't support that. The locals issue has been a major problem here in California for a long time. I've seen for over a decade Mice Chat talk about rumors about how Disney wants to revamp this program because the local annual pass holder population is just out of control. I honestly, and I know this is not unpopular, but I commend Disney for trying to rein that in. I do. And now they're getting a ton of shit for it. And now Magic Key holders are suing. And now we're going to go back to the same fucking problems we had before, where the Magic Keys run roughshod over everything. And that leaves all the tourists, all the out-of-staters, all the day ticketers out in the cold, in the dust. I don't know, man. I don't like that. I want to see a better balance. And I think that's what Disney was trying to do when they were doing the different buckets. We're trying to get more of these once-in-a-lifetimers in there. once you start to kind of combine the buckets and allow these magic keys to kind of do what they want, they're going to run through the system and squeeze other people out. They just are. And it's unfortunate. You have that family from Germany that's never gone. You have that family from Japan that's never been, and they're squeezed out because the magic key holder that needs to go for the 4th time this week to get the new popcorn bucket needs their spot in the park.
I've seen this. I've seen it personally. I've seen it personally.
And it's not even just the locals. It's also the local. Here we go. I'm going to get canceled again. But it's the local vloggers. And I'm not just saying this. I'm saying this on both coasts too, because you have these people that are going in for 1 or 2 hours, and they're using Disney as their own platform to kind of use it as a quote unquote job to get paid through YouTube or whatever source that they're getting paid. So it's almost like to the sense of, if you take away that payment of theirs, are they really going to go in as many times as they are? No, because they use that as their job. So in order for them to get paid, they have to go in, so to speak, and spend the time. But why don't they really want to spend no money? Because they're using that kind of as like a brick and mortar, so to speak, to say, hey, I'm getting paid for this, just to kind of showcase this to you on my YouTube channel. And it's like, I'm not buying anything. I'm not spending anything, but I'm just here just to show you a run so I can get paid. And it's not me knocking the vloggers. It's just the way that it is.
Well, and George, you bring up a great point. Look, as much as people complain about the prices of these magic keys, the most expensive magic key is $1,400, which sounds like a lot of money. And it is. It's a lot of money for me. I know that,
Yeah.
But here's the thing. With the price of tickets at Disneyland Resort, park hoppers, what have you, the $1,400 magic key, if you go like 5 or 6 times, you've paid for that pass. And the way magic key holders frequent the park, it's like a lifestyle. It doesn't take that long for you to pay for that pass. Month or 2 maybe for most pass holders, let's be honest. And then every subsequent visit after that, Disney's losing money on you, because let's be honest, a lot of magic key holders, including myself, you don't go to the parks and spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. No, you go to the parks, you drop in, you get the Main Street Electrical Parade bucket, or you go in, you get your sipper, the newest sipper, you go in, you have lunch at Carthay, and you leave. And that's it. You spend maybe $100 the whole day. And then you took that spot for somebody that could have been there from Japan for that once in a lifetime visit. It's just, I don't know, man. It just rubs me the wrong way. It really, really does. And I know a lot of key holders, they get mad at me for saying this every time I make a video on this, but that's just how I feel. I'm going to be honest with you guys.
There are a bunch of key holders.
And they all do it while wearing their damn Spirit jerseys. Am I right, OG? No.
Yes,
See, on the topic of being canceled,
There's no turning back now.
that's how it is, right? No, look, listen. I mean, listen, I'm sympathetic to the annual pass holders. I really am.
Yeah.
Right? I was an annual pass holder for a long, long time, until even they priced me out, where it was just like, you know what? I just can't justify this price anymore. And that was some years ago. So I'm sympathetic to it. And look, I had heard for a long, long time that, Disney was going to rein it in one way or another. It was either going to be with a hard cap, which, good luck making that equitable for everybody, right? Or it was going to be priced so high that nobody was going to be able to afford it. Credit to Disney that they actually try to find a way to actually, rebalance this whole equation. But I do also believe that they kind of did it the wrong way. They should have modeled this a little bit more accurately. They should have looked at this a little bit more closely and tried to determine a way where you could do it, not only not to get you in legal trouble, but to do it in a way that maybe didn't cause so much contention. And honestly, that's a really hard thing to do, and it all kind of stems back to the fact that the monthly payments. We talked about accessibility when it came to Genie Plus. I mean, when you make these products as accessible as you do, you get into some other, you create some other problems that maybe you weren't intending. And I think a lot of these problems stem from those monthly payments. If people were forced to, pay large sums for this up front, maybe we don't see this kind of problem that we've been seeing with the annual pass holder population when Disneyland's concerned.
Well, let me ask you guys. Go ahead, George. You go first.
No, I just wanted to just say really quick, and I'm actually an annual pass holder to both coasts. I have the Incredit Pass for Walt Disney World, and I have the Dream Key for Disneyland. So yes, I'm a keyhole. So, but it's like, at least I know to the fact that I can use my annual pass and use it how it's supposed to be used. I'm not using the annual pass for, okay, I'm going in for an hour. I'm taking somebody else's spot that could be there the whole entire day. And I'm not even saying about spending for, merchandise.
Keyhole alert, baby.
It's a trap.
There you go.
But, in all actuality, it's to the fact that, I like to be there in the park because I want to be in the park. I want to be there as long as I possibly can. I don't want to take, if I'm going to go, I want to utilize that. I don't want to be there just for an hour and take somebody else's spot who may not have been there in a while, or it's their very first time. Because I remember my first time at Disneyland. It was one of the most memorable experiences ever. And I wouldn't dare to try to take that away from somebody else's first time experience.
And it's a tough situation that they've created for themselves too, because I've seen vloggers come in there for only an hour and bring their own lunch, and it's like it's like now with these hard caps in place, you just think back, it's like, man, you've denied somebody access, and I've seen those people who are denied. I've seen those people. I've looked them straight in the face where they've come from, in some cases, Japan, but like Canada and so forth, where it's just like, we're here, we're in this state, we're right next to this park, we'd love to go more, but we can't, and it's really kind of a hard thing. And hopefully Disney finds a solution somewhere, but the current system as it now stands, I don't think is working out quite the way they anticipated and quite the way we anticipated.
Let me ask you guys a question, and this is going to sound kind of maybe a little sleazy. I don't know, but I think it's a valid question to ask.
Well, it hasn't stopped us before.
Right? Exactly. You know what? Fuck it. Let's just go with it. Right? Okay. So you're gonna drop as a consumer, right? You're going into the parks. You're gonna spend $1,400 on a Magic Key, right? Because this relates to the Magic Key lawsuit, right?
Sure.
You're gonna walk up. You're gonna spend You're gonna drop $1,400, whether that be all in up front or whether that be monthly, whatever. It's still $1,400. Is it not your obligation as a consumer to do your homework a little bit and to kind of understand what you're getting into before you sign that paperwork? Like, look, I bought a car back in 2017, right? I had to know what all my rates were before I signed the dotted line. Like, once I walk away and I sign it, I can't go back like a year later and go, wait a minute, man. I didn't know I was paying $400 a month. I didn't, you can't do that. That's not how like life works. So it's like, isn't it on kind of the onus on the consumer a little bit? I know this is unpopular, but a little bit to kind of do their homework and kind of look what you're signing up for. It was no secret leading up to the Magic Key rollout that reservations were a factor. I don't think this was not out of the blue. I mean, they made it very fucking clear. Reservations were so like. Isn't it your responsibility when you're dropping that kind of money though to do a little homework and go, okay, if I'm going to spend this, does that mean I get actual full access, or like the reservations? Is that going to block me? And kind of do your homework. I know that sounds kind of bad, but it's like, doesn't that kind of apply? I do the same homework when I'm buying a car, when I'm buying any big purchase. I do my homework. That's part of the deal, no?
Now, look, I don't disagree with you. Okay, and look, I was on this show when the Magic Key program debuted. I was on this show saying, give it like 3 months or something to that effect, right? I was like,
you
hey,
did. You were the only one doing that, because everyone else, every YouTube channel and everything was like, oh yeah, I can't wait, just buy it. And you were the only one sounding alarm. and I give you
Yes.
credit for that.
Because I was, I was saying, I was like, we don't know how a system like this could affect Disneyland Resort. We've seen how it can affect Walt Disney World, and sometimes to detrimental effect. But I was like, hey, listen, guys, let's just see how they do this. But unfortunately, a lot of people didn't. And I'll say this, okay? The blackout language, yeah, I mean, that's a problem. But the lawsuit actually goes into this and explains this pretty well. In saying that it was predicated on capacity, right? It's subject to capacity. And the person who was actually buying it was under the impression that that was total capacity, that everybody would share the same bucket. When in fact, Disney adjusts those buckets dynamically without telling either consumer, whether they be ticket holders or annual pass holders, what that ratio is actually going to end up being. And as we've seen, that ratio that Disney controls has a lot of variance and a lot of sway, right? But that wasn't listed in the terms and conditions, what those ratios were going to be and how it wasn't going to be predicated on overall capacity, but that these buckets were actually going to be implemented. Obviously, the indicators were out there for Walt Disney World, but nobody actually knew how this was all going to play out, which is why I was telling people, hey, look, maybe slow your roll. But a lot of people bought into a system that they didn't necessarily... They had an impression about how much access they were going to get, not understanding how much access they were going to end up getting.
Right.
Now, is this Magic Key holder the only one that came forward to pursue this lawsuit? Just one person.
From what I understand, yes, but that's also why they made the class action so that other Magic Key holders could join her when that class action status was approved.
Okay.
Has it been approved for class action yet or not yet?
From what I understand, it has not. It just survived the motion for dismissal.
That's interesting that it moved forward. Like when you look at the picture, the big picture, it's just like you would think, oh, a judge is going to throw this out, with the black and white on there. But I guess something in there, even the judge noticed something to keep it going.
In Vegas, they give you the odds, right? What the odds of your chance of winning are with a lot of these things. If Disney were to be transparent and to let you know what those ratios were, hard percentages, and maybe even the numbers involved, right? We see a calendar slot available. If that had a number of like, hey, there's only 150 slots left, join in, maybe people might be perceiving this a little bit differently. But honestly, Disney hasn't been the most forthcoming with that information.
See, but on my end,
that creates some legal liability potentially.
Right. See, but on my end, I didn't even really read all the black and white, and I still understood it.
I read those terms of service, every single line on the day it was actually announced.
But I mean, like, I understood.
And that's why you're producer Dre. That's why you're producer Dre.
Well, that's one of the reasons, sure.
Because Dre, my dumbass would be like, yo, fuck, fucking sign it, dude, fuck it.
But like I didn't even like read all the terms and conditions, everything. I just bought the damn thing because I wanted the highest tier to go to Disneyland. But I still, in a sense, kind of understood to the notion that when you're going to tie something like this, and of course I had you on the side of my ear saying, make sure you know what you're doing, before you actually do it, but. Right. I kind of already put it in my mind that if you already had something of a reservation system and you're going to tie it into an annual pass, it has to be some sort of contributing factor as if you had a regular base ticket.
Yes, and here's the other thing that I kind of want to bring up, because let's go back. Let's rewind to pre-Pandy, before reservations, before the dark times, before the Magic Keys, right? When people could just buy an annual pass, right?
Before we landed in the Game of Thrones.
Exactly. Yeah. How transparent, though, was Disney when it came to capacity? Like, does the average guest know what the capacity was? Because there was always a capacity issue, right? Sure. There's always a chance, like with the 60th, happened quite often, that you'd get to the front gates and it was shut down because it was full.
Yeah.
When you bought an annual pass in 2015, did you know the capacity numbers? So that's what I'm saying. Like, why is it expected now to have to
Well, people were basing that off of old numbers, though.
Wait, you have that question. You have Dre, and then you have me. We're both going to have two different answers on that question.
I'll go
I
with
think
Dre
people-
first, and then we'll go to you, George.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't mean to take your slot, George, and do apologize. I'm only stepping in for a couple minutes. Okay.
You could.
Look, I think a lot of people were, and I've heard this before from Magic Key holders, where it was like, hey, I expected a level of access in terms of capacity because back in their mind, they're thinking, well, wait a minute, the park only ran to capacity a couple of times a year, being Christmas and some high-profile events like U State OG. So they come in with this kind of foreknowledge. Based, but not realizing that capacity had completely swung and that there were going to be multiple buckets placed. So I think that's where the kind of disparity comes from. But go ahead, George. What were we going to say?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, to divert what OG was asking, back in 2015, did you focus on the number of people of what hit capacity? Like, has it crossed your mind to read that?
Back in 2015 to understand those capacity, the hard numbers.
Any time prior the pre-pandy, like, have you ever did your homework and focus on those numbers of what makes a cap day at a Disney park?
Oh yeah, well because
that's what I'm saying.
Well, because I'm insane.
I didn't do shit. That's what I mean. That's like.
Because look, listen. I mean, my personal passion when it came into the parks was operational data. Was how much does this attraction actually do guests per hour? What is the total capacity in terms of all their eateries and all their attractions and so forth, and how that contributes to it and stuff like that. That was my passion. So I knew those numbers,
and that's
but everybody else didn't, and we didn't understand them when the parks reopened.
And that's what I meant by OG's question. You and I are going to have two totally different answers to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I will say,
that's why I love Dre, because he dived in. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't dive into the numbers, and he does, and that's why.
And that's what I was saying. He'll dissect everything. It was like this to the hour, to the minute, to this number, to the fourth power of this, and I'm just sitting there I couldn't give two fucks back then.
George, I think you were there when we were in the Space Mountain queue, and I was timing out dispatch times.
Yes.
They're 20 seconds, 21 seconds. Oh, you gotta get faster because this thing is gonna back up. That kind of thing. That's what I did. So for me, and that's why
I enjoy
partially,
it. I just sit back and I just watch you do your thing, and it's just it's amazing.
right.
And that's Dre. I just feel like for the average family just buying these passes, they're not going to do all that homework, And I just feel like they should, maybe not to that degree, but they should, when you're paying a lot of money like this, $1,400, this is a lot of money to spend, even if you're not paying all.
And that's just for one. That's just for one pass.
That's for one. I mean, that's a lot of money, and you should definitely maybe read a little bit as to what you're getting into before you sign. And I think a lot of people didn't do that. Obviously, the person that is doing this lawsuit didn't read it, it just, I don't know. Because the person even admits, from what I understand, she knew that there was the reservation system was a caveat, but she didn't think it applied to her, I guess, because
no blackout dates.
Right, because she had the most expensive thing. But it's you got to do your homework, If you're going to go buy a car, you got to read the details. but just sign it and fucking, walk away. You got to read it,
Well, go ahead, George. I think you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, well, no, do your point, because I've got something part of the discussion, but it's probably going to segue into something else. So,
I mean, this is partially why Disney wants to do business in Florida, right? Or at least they did. But because, California has some pretty rigid anti-consumer or pro-consumer or consumer protections in place in that state, and that that can allow for lawsuits to actually take place like this. Now, look, I agree with you. I think you do have to do a little bit of due diligence, but I will say for her, on her side a little bit, well, apparently they had capacity to spare, didn't they? Because they adjusted those ratios after, didn't they?
Perfect. Now, I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because that's what I was just going to get into.
Sure.
Now, to OG's question before, I never really paid attention to what the cap was in each park, but I have noticed when they said, hey, the Magic Kingdom is at full capacity today, maybe something was going on. It might have been like an event or what have you, or during the holidays.
Sure.
But I never really thought nothing of it. Now you have to look at like what the cap is every single day, no matter what time of year it is. But is it just me, and I may be ignorant to the fact of that, again, not really paid attention to it, but pre-Pandy, before the reservation system, it was crowded, but I've never seen it this crowded with the reservation system, but yet they're saying that they're not at full capacity to what it was pre-Pandy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was at the parks. I can tell you exactly when, too, because we took pictures. Let me tell you when. I wasn't at Walt Disney World, though. But I was at Disneyland on... Let me tell you what day. I can tell you the exact day. On April 23rd. So not too long ago. Not too long. A few weeks ago. It was busy, but I don't think it was the busiest I've ever seen it.
Right.
It was busy. Yeah, it was robust. Hey, here we go.
Robust. There you go. I was wanting to get that drop from Christina. Christine Wastelands McCarthy when on the quarterly earnings call, but I will get that drop, but I just don't have it today. Yes. Look, I'll say this about that whole thing. It's obviously different at Walt Disney World and Disneyland.
Yeah. I mean, did I say that correctly? I mean, like, am I...
No, you're okay, but yeah. And
I mean, I did say that correctly, like of how I was trying to describe it.
I think you did. I think you did, and I think two things. One is when you talk about overall capacity, right? You're talking about the theoretical capacity, but a lot of that's contingent on the services they have available. So right now, yeah, of course they're not at full capacity yet because all those services aren't quite available as they were back in the day. The Hyperion's closed, for example. Red Car Trolley's coming online, by the way. Shout out to OG about that. We will get into that at an upcoming date, but those are the kind of things holding it back. But this is why I brought it up previous in the show. It's not just about bodies. It's about efficiency. And, this is my big problem with their extraordinary yield management practices because it is, and part of this is labor, and I have a clip about that, but a lot of it is how efficiently they're actually dealing with those people. How long is that line going to be at Coke Corner or Refreshment Corner or whatever? Or I believe it's Casey's for you guys.
Yeah.
How long is that line going to be in Space Mountain? Part of that is just how efficiently they're dealing with those people, giving you the perception that it's busier than it's ever been. Because it's not just about bodies; it's about how long am I standing in this line. When you have less rockets, going through the mountain, right? And part of that is going to be, some of the practices to get people on Genie Plus, but some of that is also too a lack of maintenance workers to get all of those rockets all, ready for the day to actually, take their turns on the mountain. When it comes to the actual, cast members in play right there, if you have a limited amount of staff, maybe they're not as efficient as, to get those dispatch times the lowest they can actually be. All those things create the perception that there's more people in the parks when really it's not necessarily just about people, it's about the efficiency. And that's what's really hurting right now. That's what's hurting that guest experience. And I think the two biggest ways you kind of mitigate these problems is, one, you got to staff up. Obviously, there's labor shortages going on across the entire United States, especially in their industry with Universal and SeaWorld raising wages, but they're not necessarily doing that. Again, Wastelands McCarthy talks about that. And two, the other thing is this Genie Plus. You gotta raise it because that's what's really killing them right now. But honestly, it's again, and the reservation system was supposed to solve all this stuff, but now we're here.
Yeah, and I don't really think there's honestly, I don't think there's any easy answer to, at least, look, I've never been to Walt Disney World, but at Disneyland, I don't think there's really any silver bullet, easy answer to this problem. Because we've touched upon so many things here where it's I'm a big proponent of kind of stepping aside and letting people who haven't experienced this amazing place, and kind of let them do that, right?
Yeah. I have the same,
but there's like
the
a
same
balancing
sensibilities.
Yeah, there's a balancing act because a lot of Magic Key people, they're like, fuck it, I want my churro, man. I want my sipper. I don't give a shit if this person is they don't care. Like a lot of people don't care. I honestly, I don't need to go 150 times a year. I'm sorry, I just don't. And it's just some people do, and that's cool. That's on them. They want to do that, but I would much rather go less and allow people to enjoy the park. Go ahead, George.
Oh no, I was just raising my hand to the fact that I'm going 150 times a year.
Yeah.